All right. Welcome to Rich Conversations. This is going to be a very exciting episode. I'm excited. We have our first guest from Paris finally. And
Hello all.
yes. Lakshman Srinivasan, right?
Perfect. You mastered it in one go, and I'm proud of it.
I try. It's hard, but I try to do it. Why don't you briefly introduce yourself for listeners and viewers?
Okay, I am from the south part of India, called Chennai. It's a metropolitan city, and most of the people from outsiders, like Europeans or from US, they know Delhi. Like 50% of them know about my city, which is like the southmost. And currently, I'm living in Paris, and I'm doing my PhD in plasma physics at École Polytechnique. And I'm starting my second year, so it's been 1 year since I've been to Paris, and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my life here. It's like creating a proper work-life balance between my studies and also like exploring the beauty of Paris itself.
Yeah. Describe the vibe of Paris.
Okay. I mean, since I've been here for a year, I can exactly chart you through the timeline of the vibes that I felt and
Okay.
like the vibe in general.
Hmm.
So for me, at first, it was magical seeing the Eiffel Tower. I mean, I would put at first at quotes, but I
Yeah.
would explain to you later on why that is. It has a lot of museums, and for people who are less than 25, I'm currently 24, and if you're a student, you get free passes to all the museums out there. And that is a tremendous opportunity, especially for people who love art to visit these museums. And so you have your Eiffel, you have Louvre, and you have churches, and you have like old buildings to visit. And the vibe is, if you find the right places to visit, and if you go to the right places at the right time, the vibe is magical. And the first time that I saw Eiffel was at night with all the lights beaming.
Oh yeah.
I would I would just capture that emotion, and like treasure it for the rest of my life. And
Wow.
that was magical for me. And even the Louvre, and since I loved Da Vinci Code, I mean, who doesn't love it? Uh, when I visited inside and when I saw the glass pyramid itself, it was another dream moment for me. Uh, but otherwise, the things that I love and are the pastries and like the best deserts in the world. Paris has them, and it's like you get down at Notre Dame and you just walk along the Seine in the evening to the Eiffel, and you see like people from all over the world. Just like it'll, especially during the summer, it'll be buzzing throughout,
Yeah.
and it's an amazing feeling to be there. And then once I got to know all of these places, I mean, it started to be a bit monotonous. I would say like, yeah, it felt good, but it was like, okay, so what other cities can I visit?
Yeah.
But I guess as a tourist, you always have these magical vibes
Hmm.
because you don't stay there for more than 3 months. But once you get used to it, I wouldn't say the magic dies down, but I would say that it feels normal. It
Okay.
feels, it doesn't feel a bit special. But I mean, there are still a lot of unexplored places in Paris for me. So if I visit them, then it might feel magical again.
Yeah. There we go. Uh, why don't you back up a little bit? You said you're from Chennai.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and that's south. You said southeast India.
Yeah, southeast, the coastal part.
Okay, what
Yeah.
what was it? What's the culture like there, and Um, how is that city unique from, say, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore,
Oh,
uh, Kolkata?
you know your places in India. That's nice.
We
Have
yeah
you ever
we've
been to
yeah
India?
yeah I'm very interested in Indian culture. We've had a number of uh, Indians on this podcast, and
Mhm.
uh, I'm friends with someone too who lives in Jaipur over
Okay,
there.
it's
Yeah,
it's it's the northwest.
yeah.
All right. So about Chennai, uh, it's completely different from France or even from US because it's like you have a unitary culture here, right?
Hmm.
And you speak one language, French in France, and
Hmm.
maybe not the same in others. But in India, you have 29 different languages and maybe even more with dialects in it. And when you separate the north and the south, it feels like a different country. And from the south, as you travel by to the north,
Hmm.
when you go to each state, of course, I mean, the resemblance is there when you travel between states which are really close geographically. But if you directly travel from one place, that is my city, Chennai, south, to the north, Delhi,
Yeah.
you'll feel that it's like a different country. And Chennai is known for its hospitality. Like the people are really friendly and the food is amazing. But I guess in India, everywhere the food is amazing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love the South Indian food and the culture. I would say that, I mean, since I am from Chennai, I would say the people are more friendly there, and you have a lot of temples to visit. So if you're a person who likes ancient traditions and stuff,
Yeah.
for you Tamil Nadu, which is my state, and
Okay.
my city Chennai, I mean, these are the places that you have to visit, definitely.
Yeah. There's so much history with Indian culture and so many yeah.
No, it's a lot to take in one podcast. I guess we
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
start a
yeah. This is
separate
a long
podcast for
conversation
it.
here. So then,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
So
true.
then, what events led you to now you're in Paris studying physics?
Mhm. Okay, so I'll start from my bachelor's. I did my bachelor's in India. So I did my bachelor's in my city itself in Chennai in the field of electronics.
Okay.
And you can always take electives in your bachelor's, right? So I took two electives which were related to physics, and I just fell in love with the subject. And maybe the professors that taught the course had an influence on it,
Hmm.
but I just love those two courses. And I was thinking in my master's, I was first I decided to do a master's.
Okay.
Then I was thinking other, I mean, it would be too abstract to go from one that is electronics to directly to physics because you have a lot of overlapping concepts that will miss. And when you're choosing masters, you have to choose a niche field. You have to choose a field that you specialize in. And having thought about that, I thought, is there a course that gives me a connection between electronics and physics? And I found a course, photonics, which is like the perfect bridge between electronics and physics.
Okay.
And I found a course in Belgium.
Okay.
So I did my master's in Belgium in Ghent. Do you know Ghent, the place, the
Uh,
city?
so is that like a famous institution there, or is that
Yeah,
a
it's the university is Ghent. So it's Ghent
okay?
University in the city Ghent. So
Okay.
Belgium, you must be knowing Brussels.
Yeah, I know Brussels for sure.
Yeah, and Ghent is like 1 hour from Brussels, and it's in the Flanders region. So unlike Brussels, people speak Dutch here rather than French.
Okay. So
So I went to Belgium.
okay.
Yeah.
So you went to Belgium. How many
Mhm.
languages do you know?
Currently, you mean literary level? I would say English and my mother tongue, Tamil, and
Okay.
another language in India called Hindi. But the
Okay.
others, I'm all in the learning phases.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I can speak fluently. But in
Okay.
Belgium, in Ghent, they spoke Dutch. But since my university was with international environment, I mean, I could get through with English, so it was fine for me.
Okay.
And it was a 2-year master's, so I was doing photonics and stuff like that, but I was more interested in semiconductors. So
Mm.
in my second year, I was wondering whether I have any Erasmus or like any exchange programs between universities. And then
Okay.
in my second year, I went to Sweden, Stockholm in Sweden.
Hmm.
So there is a university called KTH,
Okay.
Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. So I did my second year there, and I did my master thesis there. So by the end of my thesis, I had decided that yes, I want to do a PhD and I want to do a PhD in physics, semiconductors, and involving both of these. If I can find any, then it would be amazing. And right at that moment, when I was looking for PhD positions, the position of plasma physics in France attracted me. It just fell right into my lap. And I was like, okay, let me apply for this and see what happens. And this was just when I started my master thesis, which was like 8 months before the end of my master's. I was
Okay.
just browsing through options and I got this. And then I attended interviews and it was a fun conversation with my supervisor. And that's when I knew that I belonged there, even though I didn't clear the interview at that moment. I mean, I was still waiting for results. But afterwards, I kind of had this sense that, yeah, I would get it. And like Paris is a place that I belong. So,
Wow.
and yeah, and then after finishing my master's, after defending my thesis, I just took a break for a month and I went to India and then came back to Paris and started my PhD.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you were in Ghent, and the master's is like a 2-year program. So
yeah.
what made you decide, oh, I want to finish it in Stockholm? You just wanted like to do something new, or
Basically, I wanted to explore different places too,
yeah,
because I
okay, that's
know
what I
that
thought.
I can go to another place and study the same. I was really interested in the courses in Ghent, but if it can be taught somewhere else, and if I can know the another place
Yeah,
even more, then it would be good for me. And Stockholm was a rich experience for me, especially with the
yeah,
weather, because it's kind of, since it's a bit in the north, it's really different from all the other European cities.
yeah. I can imagine,
Yeah,
and especially where you're from in India too.
yeah, but you know what the hardest part is? I mean, I'm from a place where the sun is scorching, but I love that weather. I never hated that weather.
Yeah,
But when I go to colder countries, I'm like, I'm just waiting for the summer to come.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Like if these credits and everything I'm doing transfers over, I'd like to learn over here too. And
yeah.
then so then Paris, like that's uh like you said before, it's magical, and starting off, it was so beautiful too. um Paris too, it's such a major city in the world. It's cool to be studying physics there, I imagine, right?
I guess it kind of I would say Paris, but when I say that it's magical and when I say that I study physics, it's like two opposite ends of it. If I was studying art or any other cultural history behind it, then it would like merge together and I
Yeah,
can know a bit more, indulge in the culture a bit more. But physics and Paris, I would say I'm getting the best of both worlds, but I am
yeah,
also it's a bit hard to, enter into both worlds and get to know more about it.
yeah. What school in particular is it that you're at?
I'm at
I think you've
École
mentioned it.
Polytechnique.
Eco Polytechnic.
So
Nice.
it's in Palazzo. It's
Okay.
it's like in the other side of my place, Anthony, and it's not exactly in Paris.
Okay.
So it's like 10, 15 kilometers from Paris.
How often do you visit Paris?
Every week. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Oh, what else is there to do at nights? Just get there, walk along the Seine. I mean, there are like people singing, dancing. It starts from Thursdays and it goes on till Sundays, and it's amazing. Especially
Okay.
during the summer, it's like when you don't have to wear big jackets and stuff. Like you see a lot of things happening in the zone one and two between the 20 districts of Paris.
Okay. Uh so you're going there every week. What what do you enjoy doing when you're there? And like what are your favorite things to do?
Hmm. Okay, so I go out with my friends. So it's like we're a bunch of people, five, six people,
Okay.
and like none of them study physics. So it's like a diverse group. So
Yeah.
we share what we were doing the past week and stuff like that, stories. So we go there, So we separate it to different aspects. So if 1 week we're just walking from along the Seine or along any other places, parks and stuff, because you have a lot of parks in Paris. And the other week we try to switch it. We try to visit museums, we try to visit art galleries, and there are a lot of fun things to do because if you really know the places,
Mhm.
which you will after 3 or 4 months, you can find out a lot of like art openings, which are
Okay.
free to enter for everyone. And there, I mean, when you go there, and for me especially, I meet a group of people who have a thought process which is completely different than mine
Okay.
because of because of the field that I am in. So I go there and I interact with them and I get to know a lot more about the other side of the world, as you can say,
Yeah.
and like it's a rich experience for me. So I always do that, like at least monthly once. It's like
Okay.
1 week. Either I try to go on Saturday evenings, and somehow I find an art gallery opening somewhere. It's like
Okay.
a new young budding artist is opening his gallery, or even design. It's like designing with clothes designing and stuff. Because I have a friend here who's studying his master's in fashion designing.
Okay.
So I mean, he knows all the right places there. So we just go there trying to find some. We get in and we just spend 3 or 4 hours there chatting with like a different kind of people, and it's so much fun.
Really? So you'll go to these art openings and then you just kind of like meet people. And when you're saying they're coming from like a different discipline than you, which helps kind of like broaden your perspective and application of things you're learning, right?
Exactly, because during the weekdays, it's about all about physics and meeting people with like of my same background. So
Yeah.
this is like a fun and new experience like for me to do.
Yeah. Uh, we were saying off our recording that I've been there January 2020.
Hmm.
So it was colder. It wasn't the summer like you were mentioning. But
I
my
know.
favorite place was Montmartre, or was it? Yeah, Montmartre.
Montmartre,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
Sacre-Cœur, where you have that big white church.
yeah,
And from there at night, you can see like the entire Paris around. It's like such a photogenic place.
yeah. I love the history of the area too. A lot of like the impressionists would hang out there. It
Mhm.
feels like a more like relaxed vibe and just kind of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, Parisian people in itself, it's like I'm amazed to see the contrast in the work culture between the Indian, where I have been and where I'm seeing. It's like 9 to 5, and after 5, they'll send you an automated message saying that whatever it is you need, you can contact me tomorrow morning. And,
yeah,
and
let's dive into this. This was
yeah,
like the most I have my experiences as an American, and I approach my life raised by American culture. And while I'm there, like I was saying earlier, I was working on my book, Primary Ponderings, right? So I just
yeah.
want to be in coffee shops like the entire day, or like like I'm there working too. Like it's a working vacation, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go to Paris. They have all these cafes. I'll go to these cafes, I'll hop around from cafes and just like work, use internet at Wi-Fi and just
Yeah,
work, right? Well, the cafes are not set up like American coffee shops, where in
I know.
American coffee shops, it is like wide open. You got a big table to yourself. You got all this space, great Wi-Fi, outlets everywhere, and it's open late here in Chicago. You know, you can find places, 8 p.m., midnight. In New
Mm.
York, it's like some can be open even later. Go to Paris, they're shutting down at like 3 or 4, and then like I'm like, come on, I want to work. Like, what's going on? And yeah, and then you just walk around. The cafes close, and then everybody's just drinking wine and smoking cigarettes out around the like the front of the cafes. Uh,
So I'll tell you about the work culture here of a typical Parisian.
okay.
I mean, I'm trying to be more like them now, but the Indian side brings me back, but I'll explain.
I feel like
So,
the Indian culture and American culture are similar in this sense, right?
similar. It's
Yeah.
like we work our asses off.
Yeah.
But okay, so the Parisian culture, if it's a 9 to 5 job, there is no you can just come by 10, which people do normally,
Mhm.
and they work till 12. Work means for the first half an hour, it goes by greeting everyone because, I mean, they are really respectful and they greet
Okay.
and say thank you a lot. Say thank you,
Okay.
please, and like greetings a lot. So the first half an hour goes by like this, then they work for an hour and a half. And around 12, 12:30, it's like a lunch break for them. So they go out, have like a casual 3 hour lunch. And I am not exaggerating this. I am not kidding. This is true. And at around 3, they come back, maybe relax a bit, work for 2 or 3 hours, and at around between 5 to 6, they leave. And as I said, after when they leave, they switch on this automated system. And I have experienced this even with the people that I work with, that if I need something, because sometimes if I need to finish my work, I stay till 7 or 8 and I
Yeah.
want to do what I want. So if I need to get some data from my externals, I'm sending them an email and I realize that I get an email instantly. And I was like, okay, they respond instantly. And then, but it's an automated message that says, you know what? I mean, my work today is over. You can contact me tomorrow. If it's really urgent, you can contact me through phone, which they, I mean, uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's how they go with it. And after 6, for them, it's like, as you said, they go to bars and pubs and they drink. They just have like take a glass of wine or just a glass of beer, sit at the bar and talk with people for 3, 4 hours with just that one glass of beer. And I'm learning.
Huh.
I mean, r- just that one glass because it's like it's more about the conversation for them rather than
Okay.
drinking itself. But
Huh.
so that's like a typical day, typical weekday for a Parisian.
Uh, Kind of piggybacking off of that type of culture, what do you notice about people uh, and their smartphones? You know, you talked about people will sit down and it's about the conversation. It's about, you know, meeting with that person and that experience. Do you find that people are they on their phones a lot or no?
I would say that they're a bit more old school when compared to us because our cultures resembles our work cultures resembles a bit. So, of course, I won't say that they won't look at their phones at all, but I would say statistically or like to quantify it, maybe they are 50% lower,
Okay.
lower probability to look at their phones, as
Yeah.
far as I've seen.
Mm.
Because one thing in Europe, it's like they don't use WhatsApp so often unless you are like in an academic background or something. So it's
Okay.
like just direct messages to them. Or
Okay.
maybe the millennials might use Snapchat a bit more, but even with millennials, what I see is that they don't use their phone a lot if they're really like conversing with someone, and that's
Yeah.
kind of astonishing and good to see that
Yeah.
they converse with each other.
What about when you go on public transportation or like on the train in Paris? Like, are
Yeah,
people on their phones a lot or have headphones in? How does that look like?
more than phones, I've noticed that people have a book with them. So it's
Okay.
either Kindle, so it's like if you if you see 100 people, probably 20 are with the phones,
Okay.
and you can eliminate the like 10 or 15 of them for some other activities, but like 50% of them have either a Kindle or a book in their hand and they read it.
Really?
Yeah. And that encouraged me to start doing things like that, but I couldn't follow. I mean, come on. It's really hard for me to continue that process. I did that for like a day or two, but after that, it's like, let me listen to some songs or talk with my friends.
Okay. What do you think about the fashion in Paris?
I guess it's called the best fashion city for like a reason. Uh, uh, People don't make effort in looking good, looking fashionable, but you can see that when you see a group of people, they'll just look casual, but they would have put a lot of thought in it to actually look casual because it somehow matches. And
Yeah.
I kind of completely changed my wardrobe based on this because as again, it's like completely different than what I wear in India. Not
Yeah.
just because of the weather, it's because like each and every day you see people with like different contrasts and everything matches perfectly. And I
Mhm.
would say that everyone takes care of themselves really well,
Okay.
and like they put a lot of thought in their dressing, and it says a lot about them too.
Say that
Yeah.
again.
Oh no, I was just saying that by the way people dress, it says a lot about their character itself. And
Yeah.
Parisian people, they look after themselves really well, and it's
So
like,
so has that influenced your wardrobe?
yeah, I would say like
Yeah.
kind of, but the expense also matters here. So
Yeah.
I'll try to create a balance between the expense and the way my wardrobe looks. So no, like
Yeah.
half Parisian, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the concept of pullovers and like cargo pants and like even cotton pants with which has like streaks in them.
Okay.
It's like a common fashion here if you go to work. And about the
Hmm.
white sneakers, we never wear them in India, and it's like it's so common out in here, especially in summer. For the
Okay.
4 or 5 months, if you have like your ankles shown and the white sneakers that you have and the streak-lined pants and a pullover, that's it. You're a Parisian.
Nice. So you're a you're a Barcelona fan, right? For
Oh yeah, I love the team.
so how did
I,
you become a fan of the team?
yeah, I mean, people in India they love cricket. I know that you have you heard of cricket, the game?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So India doesn't have. I mean, right now the football fan following is growing a bit.
Okay.
But when I was in my college, it was solely on the influence from my friends. So, I mean, they
Mm,
started watching football, we played some, and at that point, I didn't know much about it, but Barcelona were the team who were winning at
yeah.
that point because they had like great players like Messi, Neymar, Suarez.
So what year
So,
is this that you started getting into FC Barcelona?
you know, 2014,
Oh,
where
okay.
Barcelona were at their peak because they won the Champions League in 2015.
Yeah.
And with that team, I mean, they were completely invincible, especially the
Yeah.
front three. So I was like, okay, I fell in love with them, and uh, I like the style of their play. It's like possession football.
Okay.
I mean, do you follow football? Because I don't
Uh,
want to get into
a little
specifics in
a
there.
little bit. I'm
Mhm.
vaguely familiar.
Uh-huh. Because unlike others, Barcelona play like a different style of football where they don't counter attack, but they play a possession style of football.
Okay.
And that was followed only by like two or three top teams at that point. And it was good when I started following it and all, but now it's like almost 2 3 years of Barcelona's decline. They're starting to rise again, so it's a good thing
Okay.
now. But it was a struggle for me, like for the past 2 3 years, to see them lose all the Champions League matches.
Yeah. Have you gone to a Barcelona game?
No, not yet. I mean, surprisingly, Spain and Italy are two countries on my bucket list. I have
Okay.
been to like 4 or 5 other European countries, but I've never visited these two countries. Like going to Camp
Okay.
Nou, the Barcelona stadium,
Hmm.
is like a dream for me.
Okay.
I mean, I was regretting that Messi left Barcelona, but right now he's in Paris, so I've not been to a match yet. I was
Okay.
about to book the Champions League match for PSG
Mm.
uh, for the semi-finals, but they got knocked out in the quarterfinals, and it's a pity
Oh,
right now.
geez.
Yeah, and even with a really good team, so it's
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I'll somehow try to see a match with Messi in it. That's like my first aim. And the second is to watch this current young group of Barcelona boys in at
Okay.
Camp Nou
Interesting.
because they are rekindling the style of like the possession style of play again. And with a new coach, Xavi, who was like their player in 2014. So, and then he
Oh,
retired,
really?
and after 5 6 years, he's like a club legend. So he came back, and within like 200 days, he has like completely transformed the Barcelona team. You see, like the average age of the players is only around 20.
Mm,
So and all are homegrown players. So they are from the Barca Youth Academy.
okay.
So it's like how it's he's rebuilding the foundation as how I would call. And recently, like a week back, they had a match with Real Madrid, and you know how strong Real Madrid are.
Hmm.
And like for the past 2.5 years, Barcelona hasn't won against Real. And so the last week they beat Real 4-0 in
Wow.
Real Madrid's home, and it was an amazing match to watch.
So do you not like Madrid then?
No,
Real Madrid?
I
Yeah,
mean, come
yeah.
on. I mean, I would say like Madrid as a place, of course, I would love to visit it, but as a Barcelona fan from heart, you always have that, a sense of agony against Real Madrid.
Yeah. Um, I have a Barcelona story. So I visited Spain in 2017, and
Ah,
I went to Madrid first, and one of my close friends, he's super into soccer. So I got him a Real Madrid hat and a Barcelona hat. But I went to the Real Madrid like official store, and they had
mhm.
the Champions League trophies there and
Oh,
and things like that. But when I went to Barcelona, one of the days, and I didn't plan this, it wasn't intentional, but it was kind of like a holiday for them, like a local holiday, kind of like Valentine's. So it was a Sunday, and I was out and about in Barcelona, and they what they do is they have like roses, they have like tables all around the
mhm.
city, and like young people are like at these tables, and they're selling roses you can buy for your loved ones and things like that. And you see the like the local flag that they always do. But then at night they had El Clasico. So
Oh, that's like the rivalry.
so it was playing in Madrid, but I was in Barcelona. And so I went to this American bar, and it was it was like American themed. So it was set up like a stock exchange where the prices of the beers and everything would fluctuate based on supply and demand at the moment.
Oh,
So like
okay.
the menu would be like a stock ticker, and and but so we were watching the game there, and it was packed, and uh it happened that Messi scored the winning goal within the
I
last
know that
minute of the
match.
game. Yeah.
It was 3-2, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
So and
Amazing match.
everybody went wild. And then you leave the bar, and everybody's out on the streets, and there's like a mob of people doing all these chants and celebrating, and I'm like in the middle of it. I'm like, whoa, this is wild. And you
Yeah, I know.
walk, and then there's like murals of Messi that I saw. And it was like
That's
one of the most incredible days of my life. And
wow.
it was
I mean,
crazy that like that happened, and like Messi and just the whole thing was pretty cool.
that match was like a significant one because like Real were leading in the title race, and Barcelona had to win against Real, otherwise they were out of the title race. And
Okay.
for Barcelona to score in the 90th minute and Messi to score was like
Yeah.
an icing on the cake. And I guess he removed his t-shirts and showed it to the
Yeah,
Real Madrid
that's the
fans
one.
during that match. That's the one, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a very
that's
magical night.
amazing. And you being at Barcelona at that moment, like, I
Yeah.
mean, you,
It's pretty wild.
wow. But Barcelona is definitely on my bucket list. I'm gonna, just for the atmosphere of the stadium, because it's like one of the biggest stadium ever,
Okay.
with like almost 1 lakh, I wouldn't say like zero point 0.1 million people in capacity to sit there
Ooh.
with the full crowd. You
Yeah.
should watch the Barcelona match.
Yeah. That's Barcelona is a fantastic city. It's probably, of all the cities I've gone to, it's probably like one of my favorites. Like probably
Okay.
the favorite. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, right there in the Mediterranean, and oh, the
Oh,
architecture and history, and just oh, it's pretty great.
I was planning to visit Portugal this summer, but like you're rekindling my interest in go visiting Barcelona.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna
Barcelona's
pick
cool.
now.
Uh, Are you following then like World Cup stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
obviously. And it's, yeah, next year. No, this year, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
year.
Who's the favorite right now?
Of course, it's France. They won the World Cup last
Yeah.
year, and they have like around 30, 40 players who are really good and who play like in the first division, which means like
Oh
even
wow.
their C team, the third team that they build, will
Hmm.
compete for the World Cup. So France is really strong. And but I guess it's like a curse, right? Like once you win a World Cup, the next World Cup you won't perform
It's
that well.
yeah, it's tough to repeat, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, well, getting switching gears a little bit,
Mhm.
you talked about initially studying physics. What what was like the initial spark of interest in the subject?
Spark of interest. As I said, it's about I learned electronics, so I learned all the circuitry and the other stuff which I wanted, but I wanted to know why these things happen, and
Mhm.
physics gave me the reason for it.
Yeah.
So if there is an equation called like, the basic one, Ohm's law,
Okay.
where you talk about potential and the current, but electronics just mentions that equation and asks you to build a circuit from that. But the physics tells you the reason of why the voltage is directly proportional to the current in there.
Okay.
I mean, so I mean, basically, I had a curiosity of understanding why these things happen, and that led me to explore more in the field of physics, and especially semiconductors, because every digital circuit that we study, it's based on semiconductors and the basic p-n junction that we have.
Elaborate more on semiconductors. So we live in the the 21st century where electronics is like everything,
Yeah.
right? Explain the importance and significance of semiconductors.
When you say electronics, what do you mean? You mean circuits, right? You mean digital circuits everywhere? You mean like any kind of small device that, like, when accelerated or given a potential, will do something extraordinarily out of its reach.
Yeah.
And so, but the circuit, when you see from the outside, it's well polished and it's like it's just a metal.
Mm-hmm.
But the metal are just the contacts. I mean, the thing that makes it magical, or the thing that lets it do these magical things, are semiconductors. So it's like what's inside them is like a chip, a small chip, which is just like nanometers in size, nanometers or microns in size, which you can't see with the naked eye itself sometimes. I mean, you can see with the naked eye, but it's like you can't interpret those with the naked eyes. And these small chips, or these small junctions of small materials, you can see junctions of thin films, and when I mean thin, I mean in nanometers. These are the ones which have certain properties because they're not made of like common materials. They are made of non-abundant materials in the world, in our world, and that has some certain optical and electronic properties that can be used to, charge or activate these circuits. And hence, with some more logics, if you add into it, these circuits do what they do. And so it's like, since I told you that for me, it's like what happens behind everything, that's the curiosity, and that's why I took physics. And if I'm interested in electronic circuits, then I need to be interested in what's happening inside it and what's the basis of it. And the
Mm-hmm.
basis of electronics are semiconductors. And that's why I took it. And that's why I wanted to know more about it.
So these semiconductors are materials that have certain properties that aren't abundant in the world, right?
No, the semiconductors in itself are materials that aren't abundant, and then they have certain properties.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah,
So how so these semiconductors are extremely valuable, right?
yeah, but it depends on the semiconductor too. Some are really abundant, like silicon is the semiconductor which we use for solar cells, and it's really abundant, but it also has like certain fantastic properties. But there are others who are like really non-existent. I mean, you have to like dig it into caves and find these materials. Like some are even radioactive, and then if you combine these materials, you get something really awesome. And that's why some circuits or some electronics are really costly because they have certain functionalities that depends on these semiconductors.
Okay.
And just finding these semiconductors is really hard. It's really a gruesome process.
So is there another avenue where we can invent these semiconductors based on elements on the periodic table?
That's where I come in. That's my
Okay.
work. Okay, so it's like instead of just choosing one element or one material, my work is to combine two or three different elements and make a compound. So if you combine elements or materials, it's a compound. So I combine materials. I combine gallium, and you must know gallium from the table, from the
Yeah.
periodic table, and you know nitrogen, of course. So what I do is I combine gallium and nitrogen from the periodic table, and my work is to combine them, like develop a process to combine them because people know, like even in your smartphones and all, for all the sensors that you use, the chip inside is gallium nitride. So it's like a combination of gallium and nitrogen. So
Okay.
for that, it's like the optical properties of gallium nitride is extremely valuable. And
Mm.
and I am developing a process which is based on plasma to grow these films. Like I have gallium separately, I have nitrogen separately, and with a plasma process and with a reactor that I'm currently designing, I somehow am able to grow thin films which are like nanometers in size.
Wow.
And these thin films are gallium nitride. And if you combine or if you like combine these films with silicon or like any other suitable material based on the application that you want to use, then it'll give you the output. So again, basically at the end, you just see like a black circuitry chip, but inside it is like gallium nitride. And I help to grow this gallium nitride. So it's like I'm helping to develop a new process to grow this gallium nitride, which is like low cost and low. I mean, it's effective because right now to grow gallium nitride, people literally spend millions, and I have brought it down to 50K US dollars or euros.
Really?
I've built a reactor, which I mean, the cost of the reactor is 50K, but if you consider the miscellaneous and the logics apart, it must be like 70 or 80K, but it's still like 10 times less than what people use to grow gallium nitride. And with this, my work, my first year of my PhD was to develop this reactor and to grow, but now it's to optimize the material to achieve the highest quality that like market or industry comparable quality of gallium nitride I can get.
So when you say developed the reactor, what do you mean by that?
It means that I built it from a scratch. So when I started my PhD, I mean, I opened my lab and there was an empty room. But it's like me with along with my supervisor, we designed a plan to like we bought equipments from the we first built a 3D model on how our reactor should be and what process are we using, and then we ordered the parts from companies. You know, there are a lot of plasma and vacuum based companies from which you can order the parts that you designed through either like SolidWorks, and you must be knowing SolidWorks.
What is it? Sonic Works?
SolidWorks. It's
Oh,
like a CAD, AutoCAD models where you can build 3D models with like really good precision. So you build models, you go to companies and you say that you want these models for you and you want like physical parts for you, and they assess the model on how good it is and how feasible it is, and then they give you these parts, and then you assemble these parts, and then you build a reactor. And with this reactor, there is a physical process on how you grow the material in this reactor. And we study this process and we try to grow the material with the reactor. And I hope I'm not going too much into the physics side in here.
No, I've been uh to be transparent with you. I've been like I've been I've been on this like journey in life of like curiosity and self-discovery, and I can't explain the things that are happening to me and in my life. But I've been having more and more conversations on the podcast with scientists, engineers, physicists, and it's led me to physics and learning more about physics. So I've been like studying, what's this book I have here? Like quantum theory. I've been learning about quantum theory. Fun, exactly. And I'm like getting kind of the answers of the questions that I've had. And like I'm very curious about like the future and the 21st century and like what is all going on. So I'm kind of familiar with like some of these terms that you're using. Are you using a quantum computer?
No.
Okay. Where would that come into play then? Like quantum computing?
The quantum computing is like a completely, it uses semiconductors, of course. It uses gold as a material and other semiconductors, and even gallium nitride is being used in it. But it again talks about the application part of it, But I am in the process part, like it's way below the application part.
Okay,
like
wait.
If you
elaborate on like you said the process part and then the what part?
The application part.
Application.
So quantum computing is used for solving complex mathematical equations which cannot be solved by a normal computer, right? Like if a normal computer, if you give it a problem of probability and statistics, and if you ask it to solve like any one of the millennial problems in mathematics, it will take like, I have visited a quantum computer in Sweden, so I know a bit about this, so I'm saying it. It's like it'll take 350 years to solve a complex problem, but with the quantum computer, you can solve it in 5 minutes because it has the number of iterations that it does per second. It's incomparable to what a normal computer does. It's not just about cores, it's just about assuming the binary data. And there are millions of binary data that your normal computer processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine that these binary data are just transformed into a wave. Instead of zeros and ones, you have wave. And imagine like instead of millions of data, you just have a line describing what's happening to your equation. And this line is connected between two entangled states. I know that I'm going into the physics deep just a bit, but it's about eliminating numbers because each number has a memory. All right, like binary data.
So then it's less data to process.
Exactly. It's like it simplifies the amount of data that you have to process. But then again, it's like completely different from my field, although I know a bit about it, but I'm not the master in it to explain to you a lot.
So that's the application. You're in the process of creating those semiconductors that can create those things.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if I can create some logics in the application part of the quantum computer that says like, if I want to solve this equation, I want this. But how does it do it? Because it has all of these super chips and stuff and the cryogenic cooling and stuff. But what are these super chips? These super chips are nothing but digital circuits. What are these digital circuits? They are nothing but PN junction, and you must know about PN junction. And what are these PN junctions inside these circuits? They're just small thin films of certain materials. And these materials are gallium nitride. And how are these thin films grown? Do you just place them together? No, you use a process to grow them, and I'm working on the process to grow them. So it's like, I guess you cannot go below. If you create a hierarchy, processing of these thin films come first. So I'm like in the first basic step,
Yeah.
and there is no other level that is below my step.
Wow.
And I
That's
hope
awesome.
I've I hope I was like clear enough for you.
Yeah, I get the gist of it. Can you give me or provide a basic summary of what quantum theory is?
Basic summary of quantum theory. Okay. Quantum theory is about quantifying whether and whether something can exist in two spaces at the same time. So it's about whether you can entangle any particle from one space to another without disturbing the particle at the first point. So it's like, do you have any unknown connection that exists in the world? I'm going philosophical here, but stay with me. Do you have any unknown connection that exists? I mean, any relation between these two particles? And when I mean particles, I mean photons, light. And so that when you disturb one of this particle, the other has the same frequency of the disturbance. And if it does, then you can just halve your data entirely. Because whatever this photon feels, the other photon feels the same. And the way to chart the relation between one photon and the other photon is called entanglement. And the way how entanglement occurs is explained by quantum theory.
So in simpler terms,
Okay.
so it means it's infinity, right? In a way, like if something exists over here, it could also exist here and here and here and here and here.
Yeah, it's infinity, but within a boundary. I know that it's a bit weird because when we use entangled states, when we just imagine a thread connecting two beads or like two particles, two small beads.
Okay.
And so this thread exists, right? So the way in which just disturb one particle, the information travels along this thread to the other particle. But what
Okay.
happens with photons? Photons are light, and the main thing, the one main thing that quantum theory explains is like photon, we consider it as a particle, but it's just like a radiation. So basically, it's like if you disturb one photon, does the radiation of that photon travel far enough to the other photon so that it receives the same information? So it's like disturbing two things, looking for a relation between them, and and finding the relation and quantifying them as entangled states. It's like if you flip one photon, does the other one flip? If yes, I mean, if it's as simple as a yes, then quantum theory is like I've proved quantum theory and I'm God, but I'm not.
Could you give an analogy of it without without the scientific terms of like photon, entanglement, particles? Like
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so
like
basic
yeah.
ones. Again, beads and threads. Quantum theory suggests that there exists a relationship between these two beads, that if you disturb or if you flip one bead, the other bead flips too. And if the other bead doesn't flip, then these two beads were originally not formed together. It's like they don't have the same properties.
Okay. What about using biological things? Like say like animals or humans. Can you give an analogy using that?
Animals or humans? No, I have no idea based on that.
Those parameters.
But I've explained quantum theory to you as far as I know about it.
Okay.
So I'm not an expert on it, but like as far as I understood from lectures and like from seeing YouTube videos, it's about finding a relation between two similar any. It's not just a particle between two similar entities. Yeah, entities is a good way to call them because photons are not particles, right? Finding a relation between two entities by creating an abnormality on one entity and seeing whether the same abnormality exists on the other entity.
How many fields of study are there in physics?
I guess there are lots. I mean, if I start numbering them, then I would certainly miss some, but I would tell you as far as I know, there is the field of plasmas, which I work on.
And when you say plasma, what do you mean? That's like like a film or
Plasma,
a
you know, the process that I said to grow gallium nitride. So
yeah.
I use plasma, and plasma is basically the fourth state of matter. And unlike air, water, or like any solid particles, uh, all of the solid particles or any like air that we have, it consists of atoms. And when these atoms get excited, they form ions, right? Like
Okay.
they form that excited species. And plasma basically consists of ions rather than atoms. So it's like if the air that you're breathing is oxygen, right?
Yeah.
O2. And this O2 exists in a state of a bond between O and O. And this O is an atom. So it's like properly
Okay.
bound and it's not excited. It's in this ground state. But what happens when this oxygen is excited? It breaks the bond and it exists as a separate ion. And plasma is basically when you heat like air or gas so strong, or like you create a potential between this gas so that the atoms or the electrons inside the atoms, they have enough energy to get excited, and these atoms are formed like they form ions. And plasma basically consists of ions.
Huh. Interesting.
So, and to know like how I develop or like grow this gallium nitride is like I introduce nitrogen gas in my chamber and I create a magnetic field, and this field is strong enough. And I explained to you before, plasma is only formed when you have ions and not atoms in a ground state. So this nitrogen is there. And because of the field that I create, this nitrogen atom breaks and it forms ions of nitrogen. And these
Hmm.
ions, like along with gallium ions, they just have enough energy to go to a certain area and like bombard. And when this
Okay.
gallium and nitrogen ion bombard together, they form gallium nitride.
Huh.
And that happens basically in the plasma.
Okay. All right. So we got plasma. That's a lot. That's a lot there for me. Think
But
about.
you can just like plasmas, like visually, it's fascinating. When you see a plasma, it's like a bright glow. I mean, you can just use Google to search for plasmas and stuff. It's like a field of its own. But coming back to the question that you asked, fields of physics. So we have plasma
Okay.
and we have semiconductor physics, which is obvious. We have nuclear physics and we have computational physics, which is like more on the math. And we have like Physics. Yeah, and we have theoretical physics, which talks a lot about like, string theories and stuff like that, like existence of existence of everything in the world. I mean, Stephen Hawking and all of the famous physicists, like they revolve around this theoretical physics concept. Then comes the processing and the application part.
Yeah. It's
I guess I'm boring you too much with physics, no?
no, it's excited me. That's what it is. Okay, so what technology possibilities excite you most for the future?
Technology. I guess to be a bit childish, I would say uh, teleportation, or like if it really exists, and even yeah, I mean teleportation is my first. It would be amazing. And I have read some stuff about it. It's like, you know, the theory where Einstein's theory of particle can neither be created nor not destroyed, like energy can neither be
Yeah.
created nor destroyed, right? And I believe that we are all like just a bunch of energy in
Yeah.
here, right? And what if this energy can be stored in some form and then brought back to another place, another form? It's like shrink the energy but maintain the information inside it. So it's like
Yeah.
energy with some form of information creates me, right?
See, but
So
that's the hard part about this, right? Is like you would have to take this energy, like disassemble it, and then put it back together. And like just the idea of that, I bet a lot of information will get lost in that process. How do you
yeah,
retain that? That's the curiosity, right?
yeah. I mean, if you can, then I mean that's the best thing of the like, entire generation of us. But I'd say like it's a distant possibility, but I would love for it to happen.
Do you
Like,
think, do you think within 500 years,
mhm,
the airports that we use today, per se,
mhm.
could you see them becoming hubs where you go there and there's like a booth or whatever device it may be, and it's like
For us to fly,
like
like
it's like
individually.
instead of getting on a physical plane and flying and spending that time on that plane flying and going through all those logistics, it's regulated through the airport and entities where you go into this thing and then like teleportation happens and then you show up at the airport or port of the other country where you're visiting.
Yeah, that would be amazing, right?
Maybe not in our lifetime, most likely, but like
Yeah, I know
500
that. I
years
mean,
from now.
it can happen because like even phones and air travel was like a distant possibility around 300 years ago. And people never thought that so much things would happen. So we never know. Means
Yeah.
someone brilliant enough might find a solution for that. But of course, before that, a lot of catastrophic events will happen and people won't agree because like there should be some test subjects,
Yeah.
whose energy is created or like whose energy is disintegrated and brought back again. But yeah, it's a possibility, I would say. But I would be optimistic about it. In 500 years, that's a good timeline.
Yeah, that's a good bet, I feel like.
Yeah.
uh
But I guess before that, robots would kind of start taking over the world and ruling us, with this AI just being really growing fast. I am pretty scared of what like robots can learn.
mm,
It's like if that doesn't happen, and if humanity still exists in 500 years, I'm pretty sure that teleportation will also exist.
yeah, interesting. What what role do you see physicists playing in the 21st century?
physicists.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's a contradiction of what I'm gonna say, like the entire field that I'm currently in. But I said the role of physicists is to explain why things are happening, right? Is
Hmm.
to explain any concept that's happening in the world. And as you know, as the centuries go by, you have less and less things to explain because it has been explained by others. So it's
Mm.
like if you look at the field that I'm currently doing, like if I did the same, or if I did like 5% of the work 100 years ago, I would have got a Nobel for it. But like at that point, people didn't know that gallium existed. People didn't know that nitrogen existed. But you see the contrast of how it is
Yeah.
now. So right now, just finding gallium and nitrogen and combining together in a plasma is not so big a deal. But
Hmm.
probably 100 years later, the concept that we find significant now is not. So physicists, the role of engineers and the role of architects would be even more than the role of physicists. And that's what I feel because, of course, there would be new concepts to explain, but the concepts would be harder and there would be lesser. They would be lesser than it is now. Because every day you see the explanation of something that was unsolved before.
So we're hitting a point in the world or the human story where it's less, it's just common to now like discover things because we're like compounding on the successes of prior discoveries.
Yeah,
And we're are we just going to be like inventing more and like creating more
inventing more. We would be inventing more, but we wouldn't be
or efficient?
discovering more.
So we're not
Like,
discovering, we're not,
we,
okay,
yeah,
so we're not discovering, but we're like,
inventing. See,
okay,
discovery needs physicists, and inventing needs engineers because they have
okay,
the discovery behind them. And
yeah,
that's why I say, like, for example, if you see, if Einstein, his light particle interaction and his theory, which he postulated like 100 years ago, I mean, that still exists. And if you see all of the concepts that we study in school right now, none
mhm,
of it is from a famous physicist like 5 years ago. It's all about like what was done 60, 70 years ago, because that formed the base.
yeah,
And what's happening new right now, apart from Stephen Hawking's like brief history of time, which was like 15 years ago. And that's the latest that I'm talking about. In
okay,
the past 5 years, have you known any groundbreaking physics that happened? No, they're just building upon stuff that was already postulated. And
yeah.
that's my concern in here. So we certainly have lesser discoveries, but we have more inventions because discoveries are like the base of anything.
Hmm.
And I feel that like the basis, I mean, for finding a base, like the saturation point is nearing.
So we're just going to become more and more efficient with our creating, and
Exactly.
it's everything is going to become bigger and cheaper to make, right? Like we have an imagination of what we want to create, and we already know like the stuff behind it. We just have to figure out how to do it, the process in doing it, and how to do it cheaply, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So it's like there's only so much to find out in this earth. And right now with that technology, I mean, just as an example, you know the periodic table, you know the elements in it. I mean, how many elements have been found recently? They just work with the ones that they have found because in the earth there is nothing more to find.
So is that
Maybe you
why we're excited for a space exploration?
maybe, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be another solution for more discoveries, but as I said, in our generation, that's
Yeah.
pretty much impossible.
Yeah. Wild stuff. I love this.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. kind of some last questions here
Sure.
to wrap up the conversation. Are
Mhm.
there like three people or things that have influenced your outlook on life?
People. Is it just people, or can I also say any events or books or stuff?
It's totally up to you. Events,
Oh,
stuff, books, medium of arts, whatever it may be.
okay. People. As I've mentioned already his name twice in this conversation, Stephen Hawking.
Okay.
I mean, his field is completely different from mine, but I always consider him an inspiration because of the challenges that he faced and still managed to discover something that is extraordinary. That is like, I mean, he explains the creation, I mean, the start of the Big Bang Theory and the start of the universe. And with all of his, you know, all of his struggles. You've seen the movie, The Theory of Everything, right? I'm hoping.
I have not yet.
Oh my God, you have to see it because, I mean, it just doesn't explain about the physics. It's about his life, and that
Okay.
is like one of my favorite movies. And I consider him as a role model for me. I consider
Okay.
him the dedication that he had towards his field and the love more than the dedication, the love that he had towards
Yeah.
physics and the field. And probably that's like one of the reasons that I chose physics, which I didn't mention earlier, but yeah, I could call that a driving force.
Wow.
And that's one, Stephen Hawking. And when I say any other stuff, it's books. And this was recent, like 4 years ago. And you must know about this book by Mark Manson, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I started reading that book and then I was
Yeah.
like, this book isn't
Uh,
for me. And then I put it away.
but for me, I mean, it depends on people. So
I know
I'm not
it
asking.
totally depends on the individual. Totally.
Yeah.
I get what
Because
he's saying though.
yeah, it's some people, even my friends, when they read the book, they feel that he's just stating facts and he's not saying anything new. But for me, it was about my character was like to give a lot of attention to what was happening around me and like what people thought of me, and that kind of hindered my growth a lot from my
Okay.
bachelor's, from my master's, and when I read his book, for me, it was more about self-realization through
Hmm.
a book
Yeah.
because like those are the things that I've already known, but like for another person to explain those things meant that okay, there are people in this world who are facing such issues and there is a way to come out of it. So it's like a morale booster and like a life example.
Mm.
So that book kind of helped me a lot, and like I know that for people who don't face with such issues, for them it's like okay, he's just stating the fact, so it might not be interesting. So I'm not like blaming you at this point for not liking the book.
Well, that's what's so great about books is that it's books can reach different types of people. Like for every Mark Manson book, there's equally another book that might reach me in the same type of way that you're talking about, but it's just
Yeah.
assembled differently, and said
Hmm.
differently. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's kind of amazing about books.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
the third thing,
Yeah.
I need to think about it. I'm not like spontaneously, I couldn't think about anything. So
Okay.
like I want to be true to myself, so I don't want to just tell any reason that comes to mind. So if we can have a chat later, then, and if I have something in my mind, really, I would
Yeah,
explain that.
for
But right
sure.
now, I only have two.
Are there three musical artists in your heavy rotation right now?
Let me check my Prime Video, the music.
How do you listen to music?
It's Amazon. It's through app.
Amazon Music. Interesting.
Yeah. What do you follow?
I do
Spotify?
Spotify. Yeah,
Yeah.
Spotify.
Spotify is popular here too, but I've been using Amazon for a long time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have Fallout Boy. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Oh, I love them because like especially in the gym, the pump. that I get from those songs
Yeah,
with
for
their
sure.
good beats. It's amazing. And yeah, basically when I study, or like when I'm in like a calming mood, I listen to instrumental musics from
Okay.
Hans Zimmer, you know.
Yep.
Uh, so, uh, you must know about the Dark Knight, Chevalier de Sangreal from the Da Vinci Code and stuff. I mean, music from Interstellar, the background plays that he did, it's
Okay.
amazing.
He did Interstellar too.
Yeah, and you should definitely listen to it. So I've suggested you a good one, so don't miss it.
Okay.
And Linkin Park.
Okay. Yeah.
Linkin Park, I have a lot from the album Living Things. I don't know whether you know it, mm, but I basically love all of their songs.
Huh. Nice.
Sometimes Alan Walker, but Alan Walker always comes in a phase. If I haven't listened to him for 6 months, then he comes back again for a month. It's
Who is
all
this?
Alan
Alan
Walker.
Walker?
Yeah,
That's more like electronic, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So so it's like for 6 months I won't listen to him, and for a month he'll be the only one in my playlist. And afterwards, like I feel bored of him, and then I change it. Like
Isn't that
it's a
interesting with
cycle.
music, how that works like that?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I'm that type of a person who, if I like a song, I just keep on listening to it until I'm tired of that song.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally the same.
And like, and the worst feeling about that, when you listen to it for the first time, you're amazed by it.
Yeah.
So you put it on loop, you listen to the second time, but just when the second time starts, you know that you won't get the feel like the first time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like shit. I know this process. I'm gonna listen to it 20 times and I'm gonna regret it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like,
Because now it's like you don't have to tune into a radio station and wait every hour to hear that one song. You can literally just do it
every
like
yeah.
on repeat, right?